Hello and welcome back to Talking Freight, a weekly series where we give you quick tips on how to better manage freight. The series is brought to you by Cerasis, a North American third-party logistics company who focuses on over-the-road transportation management solutions through technology and, of course, our value-added services. That's what makes us an expert in giving you tips on how to better manage freight. Now, we're going to conclude our series that we've been going on over the last few weeks around less than truckload shipping. Today, we're going to talk about 9 areas to focus on in order to get best-in-class shipper status. Now, if you ship freight, or if you've been around the industry for a few years, you know that carriers are always looking for attractive freight. And the more that you can create attractive freight, the more likely that you're not going to run into any capacity issues. Now, in order to have attractive freight, you might as well go ahead and make yourself a best-in-class shipper. So how do you begin to make yourself a best-in-class shipper? Well, first, you got to focus on data. And that's pretty simple. That's how modern business is done today. You got to focus next on capturing on that data. So first, you need to understand what is the data I want to capture and how am I going to go about capturing that? Of course, there are many processes involved in LTL shipping. Did the carrier take your stuff and get it to the customer on time? Are they low on damage claims? Are they tough to work with on accessorials? You see, in order to work with a carrier and hold them accountable, you have to have the right data in order to have a substantive conversation. So the way to do that is to get some way to capture that. Now we'll talk about how you can do that in a minute. The next thing that involves LTL shipping, of course, are carriers. Now, in order to become a best-in-class shipper, you need to know how their business works. That requires you reaching out to them beyond just when you book your shipment for that day. Go to the folks, the account executives, and even the people at the terminal. Maybe get a terminal tour and start understanding how they like to see freight. What makes it attractive? What are their limitations? What do they like to see? For example, we have a customer that just came to us today that they didn't know that a specific carrier actually put that freight eventually on a rail line, which makes it a lot less visible in the tracking process. So if someone wants to understand that tracking or it's important to the customer that you've just shipped that to, then you need to know that maybe that carrier for this shipment is not the best one. So it's important that you know their business, so that way when you do get the data, you can have a much better relationship and put that in front of them. The next thing in order for this to really work and build off of the first two is organization. Has leadership really talked to the organization about the importance of becoming a best-in-class shipper? Are they driving those objectives through? So you need to communicate that to the full organization. The next one, of course, is always a focus on freight spend management. Now, you may have an overall transportation budget, and LTL is a portion of that. So how does it play into the overall transportation budget? What's the percentage of LTL? And month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year, how are you affecting that? Well, it's hard to know what factors go into your total cost without data capture or without the organization being fully on board or having knowledge of a carrier's business. So freight spend management, you can do that by making sure you're paying attention to the numbers. How much was your inbound cost? How much were your outbound cost? How many accessorials came into play? So you need to put all of those things into consideration. The next one are processes. So you have some data, you're looking at that, you're starting to get some information from carriers, you're really trying to work on freight spend management. Well, you need to make sure your processes are also sound and fundamental, that they're recorded, that it's communicated. And so when you can follow these processes, maybe it's the time of day you need to ship for a specific carrier, or how you create your bills of lading, or who you communicate to, or how you talk to your customer when setting expectations when shipping your freight to them. It's very important that you get your processes documented and sound, because the next one, the use of technology, only is worse if you have poor processes. In fact, Bill Gates has a famous quote that's attributed to him that says, whenever you implement technology with bad process, all the technology will do is shine a bright light on inefficient process, thus making it even more difficult when using technology. So before you invest in something like a transportation management system to better manage your freight, you have to have those processes correct. But then once you do, you need to make sure that you're not using manual methods anymore to do LTL technology or LTL shipping management, but that you're using technology to aid into that process. So a transportation management system can hold documents, it can hold all your address book, your commodities that you're frequently using. It can allow you to easily put on accessorials. It can give you different carriers with different rates for that specific shipment at time of shipment. So make sure you're using technology. It's a very important factor, and in fact, it can help you capture some of that data. A lot of our customers use our transportation management system, and they had never used one before, and they're really starting to see a lot of efficiency, cost reduction, and more importantly, they're having a lot of good substantive conversations with carriers and their own organization around that data and the reports that they're seeing from that TMS. The next one is strategy. So like any company, any process, and any department, you have to have a strategy and people have to know what's your vision, what are your desired goals. However, you can't build a strong of a strategy unless you're confident that the processes are there and you have the tools and technology to make those processes work efficiently. So build that strategy, make sure you have everything else in place, and communicate that to everyone else. It might be our strategy this year is to decrease the amount of time it takes to get our freight to customers, reduce the cost in overall freight, and increase our use of various carriers from 3 to 4 or 5 so you have more diversity. Next, once you have that strategy in place, you need to make sure within that strategy you have some good key performance indicators or KPIs for both your organization and the carriers. And if you have a 3PL involved, like a Cerasis, for the 3PL. And make sure that's communicated to all parties and in your organization, your company, so everyone knows what are the key performance indicators. And then of course, when using a transportation management system and you're able to capture this data, you can have nice reporting that allows you to have discussions around these KPIs with carriers and the 3PL. And you can truly measure and make sure you're tracking towards your stated overall goals in the strategy. And then finally, the best way to make sure that you're a best-in-class shipper is to have extremely good carrier and shipper relations. That's really at the heart of all of this. And at Cerasis, that's one of the value-added services that we give along with our transportation management system. Carriers are the main reason our freight gets from point A to point B. They're truly partners. You have to partner with them. You have to talk to them frequently. You have to keep up those relationships, and you have to have fact-based conversations, not based on feelings. Because when you have trust and you have that relationship, when things like freight claims happen and damage, which can be annoying, or perhaps an invoice wasn't the correct amount that you expected to see, or it's time to negotiate rates and talk about your different lanes and maybe get an RFP together so you can get better pricing. It's all going to be much better across your carrier base if you have a strategy, if you're looking at data, if you're using technology, and if your entire organization's on board and on the same page. Then you can talk to that carrier, have a positive relationship, and truly have them see you as a best-in-class shipper so you never run into any potential headaches if a capacity crunch comes in place or if you need to use a carrier more often than is expected or there's problems. So don't hesitate today. Definitely take a look at these areas to focus on if you want to become a best-in-class shipper. Make sure you look at the description down below here on this YouTube channel to get a blog post that has a lot more detail. And if you like our videos, give us a thumbs up on this video or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the little bell icon so you don't miss a single video. Our goal is to educate the industry and to make sure that you are a best-in-class shipper and that you have all the information you need to do the best job possible. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Talking Freight.